Okay. Creating safe and secure relational atmospheres in our families. So, again, we've talked about the two components of that. The one is our relationships with one another, and then how we're including God in that as well, because it's it's the combination of those things that are really creating the nurturing atmospheres. So anyway, back to Kurt Thompson. We come into the world looking for someone looking for us. This is true both humanly and spiritually. Let's just mark that. It's not just we're looking for another human. We're also, like Lisa Miller said, we're also born wanting that spiritual connection as well. So we're looking for both things. We're looking for someone looking for us as a human being who's going to make the literal eye contact with us, but we're also looking for something spiritual, something more, some transcendent, bigger thing that's going to hold us as a human being. Okay, so creating an atmosphere for human and spiritual attachment. What are some things we just need to wrestle with at the beginning? That takes time. It takes time. It's not a one and done kind of thing. This is an ongoing process. It takes time. We're in it for the long haul. It takes work. It's good work. It's the best work, but it takes work. You have to work at it. You have to be intentional. You have to bring yourself to it. You have to be mindful of it. It takes work. And then, like we were just talking about, learning our own attachment style with others and God is a really important part of that work. Because if we are going in blind, we're reacting more than we're responding. And so learning our own style helps us to respond in a way that isn't so unconscious in our life. It takes consistency. Now, the thing is we're never going to get perfection. And the nice thing about the attachment stuff is you don't have to have perfection in order to actually attach. But there needs to be some consistency. The more hit and miss it is, the more troubling that actually is for a child. And there's actually structures that children create that protect them against the volatile nature of their parent, if their parent is so unpredictable. So consistency is important. And then it takes priority in certain seasons. And so I'm gonna go back to Miller here for a second. And where do I want to read from? I think from here. The growing body of literature in this emerging field at the intersection of science and spirit offers an unprecedented view into the uniquely powerful spiritual potential of childhood and adolescence. My research and that of others explore the protective benefits of healthy spiritual development, meeting some of the most serious health challenges of adolescence, such as risk-taking, depression, substance abuse, and severe affective disorders. Spirituality is also strongly associated with positive inner assets such as meaning, purpose, and optimism. As a society, we urgently need to see the overwhelming strength of spirituality as a foremost protection against the source of the leading causes of death between the ages of 15 and 24. Accidents due to risk, mostly automotive, suicides, and homicides, as well as the contribution of drug use in these tragedies. This deserves a national conversation to reframe the impact of our institutions and culture on development and the impact of personal spirituality on development as well. So she's talking about, the fact that there's these windows in childhood and adolescence where it's not just about what the child has capacity for, but the connection with actual brain development in those seasons, and how she's talking as a scientist, like, this needs to be in our culture. Like, we need to pay attention to this. The evidence is overwhelming and we're ignoring it, mostly with her own colleagues as well. She gets very little traction in the scientific world for things that include the word spirituality, because it's not hard science, although the evidence is quite overwhelming. But I think for us, especially as those people of faith, this is an imperative conversation that we have, because we're actually supposed to be the leaders in actually spreading the good news about this. And so the more we engage in this conversation about what are the strategic seasons and how we help each other and those that we're mentoring to do this, the better. We know God. Like, we're his ambassadors. We're his family. We want to get this right inside our communities and then let that be a beacon to others. So we want to look at the priority that it takes in certain seasons, especially in the life of children. So in this question of we come into the world looking for someone, looking for us, who is looking for us? And how can we be there when they're looking? So let's just talk about the opportunity of the first 5 years really in brain development. And there's a couple questions that really merge, but the very first one is, who do I trust? When a child comes into the world, this is the essential question. Who do I trust? And how can I find the trusting place that allows my brain to develop around that? So the core thing for kids is, at the very beginning is, I have a need. Does somebody notice? I have a need. Does somebody notice? Is someone going to respond? Am I precious enough to someone that they're going to be there? And so, from the first cries, and the first expressions, the only ways to communicate a need, distress, is there somebody there to meet me in that place? So we start by responding, by being there, by being that safe place that responds in love and care and nurture and meeting the need. If you even think about so you got to just keep a little tab going here on the spiritual correlations, because in our relationship with God, what is the most thing we do is we connect with our needs and express them to him. Like, we need to become people comfortable in expressing our needs. And if we don't do that well, we probably learned that somewhere long, long ago, that when I had a need, someone wasn't going to be there, and I had to take care of it myself. So as we're dealing with children in our lives, and even maybe the child inside of us, we have to go back to this idea that expressing needs is a part of humanity. It's how we connect with one another. Receiving care in that place is a good, natural, healthy thing for us. We're not supposed to be people without needs. We're people with needs. Children come with needs. They're not a bother. That's our privilege, to connect with them, to create something. And when we respond in a loving, caring, I take care of you in this place, that's creating the safety that allows them to thrive in life. So the other thing that happens in this attachment thing is play. Now, we all do play, especially with infants. We do play with children, young children. We don't even think about it a lot of time, but I want to just say how valuable play is. So my colleague for a decade, Monica Romay Green, grew up in the theater, and she did a lot of improv. And so she also then did these spiritual retreats on play. And she taught me that you never play unless you're safe. And so because that's just part of play. You cannot play because there's so much exploration in play. It has to come from a safe thing. So when at TCU does these camps for these children from hard places, and it has a lot of play, because if you need to sidetrack just like one-on-one interaction, you use play, because when children play, it automatically starts creating safety. So we do a lot of playing. Playing is a very valuable thing. I talked last week about when we do this what is it, this blue ribbon thing. Yeah, we're playing together. That's a very valuable thing. We're doing adult play with one another, but it creates this place of safety where we can interact. It's a little side door into it, is what it is. So there's lots of things that happen when we play with our kids. With little babies, we have so many attachment opportunities in the I stick out my tongue and you stick out your tongue, and then we both laugh. You know, there's so much brain development that happens there. I won't go into all the details, but, you know, we're sharing brain space with one another. We're developing. There's mirroring that's going on. The child is like, their little brain is just woo, 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 you know, and it's a lovely thing. But play is one of the things that creates this. There's no pressure here. We're having fun being together. I love to be with you in this place. And the child just soaks that in, and it creates attachment. This idea of uninterrupted time, there's kind of this leisure in it. Like children, really young children, pick up on cues when you're not all there. And so this uninterrupted time and this studying that you do of the child, and just even learning to read their cues, like, I study your face. Like, over time, parents will say, like, you know, they'll get several months into it, and it's like, oh, that cry is the cry that they need to have their diaper changed, or that cry is the cry that they're hungry, or, oh, I don't know, I heard that cry, something's really wrong, they're scared, they're distressed, something has happened. This is a part of us bonding with other people. And we do this even as adults in married relationships. We learn to read the face. We learn to read the cue. This is all an attachment process that we go through. But we take the time to, and I'm not going to use the word analyze because it sounds too clinical, but to be invested in knowing them. And where they are, understanding their states of being. And then within that, we get this experience called attunement. And that's when I share the emotion that you're sharing. And together, like when you're distressed, I come and I'm with you in your distress, and together we experience the soothing of that. And as an adult with a child, often what we bring is the unanxious presence to that, where the child is distressed and they're worked up, and we come in a calm state and we calm them, but we're actually, in a very biological way, sharing our brain function with them. You know, there's a reason why we intuitively get down when our child's really upset. We say, look in my eyes. Just look in my eyes. We're actually sharing our brain state with them. I have a friend who told me at lunch the other day, her daughter had, even as a teenager and young adult, panic attacks. And she learned through therapy and her daughter's therapist that if she would go and physically touch her daughter and put her hand physically on her daughter's forehead, that she was actually sharing calm state with her daughter, and it would help her daughter to relax in her panic attack. Like there's mysterious biological things that are happening in our connections with one another that are incredible, that we should learn, that we should practice, that we should do. But we can share, and we do share. There's lots of brain mimicking that goes on when attachment is happening between us as human beings. So we want distress to be soothed. We want joy to be amplified. Those are two very attuning, attaching experiences for us emotionally as human beings, and they continue our whole life. I mean, Scripture says, weep with those that weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. We're supposed to bring the comfort of our attunement to sadness and the amplification of our joy experience with one another as long as we draw breath. And these are very powerful things in our connections with one another. So I think about what's unique with us as human beings with one another, and that is so important when it comes to our connections with our kids or even with us as adults, is we have faces. Faces are really important. Eyes, looking at each other in our eyes, like connecting. I remember this art installation. It was like they did it. I watched this documentary at one point where it was what do they call this? Performance art. And they did it in a museum, and they had two people that just sat there and looked into each other's eyes for like this long period of time. But what realizes what happens when you actually look into another person's eyes for a long period of time. Like things happen, like your brain changes, like you attune to one another in a way. You don't even have to say anything. Like that alone does something to who you are as human beings. But we have faces. We have smiles. Our faces can communicate so much, can communicate the joy of being with someone, the excitement, the play, or disapproval and rejection and all kinds of things. So our faces are important. We have arms. We have a way to embrace, to hold, to carry. We have voices. Voices are really, really important. The tone of our voice. I was watching a lot of Karen Purvis. I've rewatched some of the stuff this week, and it's so funny because she has a way of talking, and it's so funny. It's very Karen Purvis. And, she's like, it's always so joyful and so playful. She has a very playful way of talking. She's always talking to children. She was when she was alive. She was always talking to them and always in a, hey, buddy, and it's like even when she's correcting, she's like, you want to try that again? It's always the normal state is playful engagement with her. Like, how do I communicate through my voice with you that I am for you and you are precious? And I'm always going to start. I'm never going to escalate to anything more serious. And even after something happens, I'm going to always go back to that. Okay, buddy, let's go. Let's do it. Good job. Give me a high five. And then she'll often go, woohoo! At the end, and celebrate. Celebrate something that was reconnected. But anyway, we have voices. But our child also has a voice. And understanding and welcoming their voice is also a really important thing about attaching. And then we have touch. And touch is very important. And I'm going to qualify it with safe touch because many of us have experienced touch that was not safe, that was harmful, that was abusive. And so we always qualify that safe touch is the thing that builds healthy attachment. But touch is imperative for human thriving. And they've found this out, children who are not touched will die. I mean, they literally cannot thrive. They call it failure to thrive, the life of a child who doesn't actually experience touch. It is imperative to human thriving, but for thriving, it needs to be safe touch. So how are we creating those things? So again, Karen Purvis would say the single most important formation experience for a child is the attachment bond. Emotional attunement, biological attunement, affective attunement, aligning states of mind gives a child a secure base from which to eventually explore the world. Without that, then we talked already about the disintegration that can come from that. So I think I put this on your thing. I include these, but there's these antecedents to secure attachment. What is the thing that comes before so that secure attachment can happen. Parental responsiveness. You think that's kind of a given. You think it should just be a given. I guess I want to qualify some of these things now with where we find ourselves and what we're dealing with that happens to be unique to our particular time in history. Because I think some of these things that just seem to just be like, well, of course that's thing, are not quite as available as they used to be. And part of it is because we have technology. We have phones in our hands. We get addicted to our social media and to our texts. Like we have challenges to our availability and responsiveness now that we didn't have in the past. And so I think that we have to be mindful of what we're up against, particularly today, against some of these things that are core to who we are as human beings. So, parental responsiveness. When your child has a problem, you will respond. You will come. You will be present. Acknowledgments of actions and words. So you see your child. Oh, look at you. Look at you. That's so good what you're doing, You hear them when they talk. They express to you a need, and you say, or as Karen Purvis would say, good job telling your need, buddy. Like you affirm them in their verbal communication. Their voice is important, so you acknowledge them. You do affectionate pickups. Like, this is I come to you and I want to be held. Could you pick me up? And you do it. You give them that affectionate pickup. You're not a bother. You're not too much for me. You can have shaming messages that are kind of, I'm not enough or I'm too much. Both of them are shaming messages. And then competent holdings. This idea that competent, this is an interesting thing to just reflect on. What is a competent holding? I think it's one that brings the comfort that's needed in that moment. So there's a whole kind of ethos that you bring to that holding of your child. And then, like we talked earlier, the sensitivity to the signals, the learning, the fascination with your relationship with your child that causes you to learn the signals and be sensitive to them. I haven't thought of this story in a long time, but years ago, I had to have been maybe like 4. It was probably about 4. And I was sitting in church, and I was on the front row. I had to be with somebody. My mom was in the choir, and my dad was on the platform. And I started to disintegrate a little bit in the pew. Like, I remember just like, and I don't remember the specifics, but I remember this situation. And my mom was in the choir loft. And she saw me on the front row. And she left the choir loft. And she came and got me. Now I'm going to cry at this. Because she saw the signals. And she responded. Yeah. That's a meaningful encounter for a child, to be seen that way. Okay. Behavioral systems rooted in attachment, attachment with others. I mean, we have secure attachment. We don't have a problem attaching to other people. We have the foundation in ourselves to do that. Affiliation. We know how to make friends. We're secure in that process. We're not fragile. We don't take, certainly we're going to grow in this as we mature, but we have some kind of secure base to go back to, in the same way that I talked about the secure base I had with God when I went into a riskier relationship with my dad. We have this secure base. I experienced this most profoundly with my third child. We went to the summer camp every year, and we went. He was younger when we went than our older children, so he went to this more daycare kind of thing, and he had a little harder time, and so we would go after lunch and we'd all be in this dining room, and I remember him. He would come and he would sit on my lap for a little while, and then he would get down and he would go off and do something. And then he would come back and he would sit on my lap for a little while, and then he'd go back and do something. That's what attachment does for you. It's like it gives you that secure base to know, like, I have somewhere to go back and sit. I have someone, I have some place where I can go back, and when I'm feeling a little like I can't explore anymore, but then it gives me the place to go out, to make friends, to explore, to make and be a part of the world, a bigger world. But that sticks in my mind, that experience with him that one summer at camp. So this idea of fear and wariness, who do I trust? So one of the things with damaged kids is they don't have this internal gauge of who do I trust and who do I don't trust. Like it's underdeveloped. So they're prey. Or they just don't trust anybody. There's nobody secure. And so actually secure attachment helps children in that process to develop some sense of, this is a trustworthy person. They have these qualities, or I don't know, there's something in my gut that says maybe this is not the right thing. And so this is a wonderful and protective thing for us to have as human beings, but we don't want it to be overactivated or underactivated. We want it to function correctly, and secure attachment helps that. And then just exploration of the world, what we've already touched on before. This ability to go out and try new things and know I'm going to be okay. Like, I can fail, and that's fine. That's not a terminal thing. I can try stuff because I have this foundation in my life that's holding me against those things. So just to come back to this idea of full attention, giving our full attention to someone. And again, this could be a child. It could be a friend. It could be your mate. Full attention is a big deal, but again, so challenged in our world. I think we did a seminar. It was probably 10 years ago now, on, I can't even remember what the title of it was, but we did an exercise where we just had people turn to each other and do a listening exercise. And for 5 minutes, one person listened to this person talk, uninterrupted, and then just say, thank you for sharing at the end. And then they switched. And this person talked for 5 minutes, uninterrupted, to this person. And then they said, thank you. And you would be shocked at how many people reflected after that. I don't know when the last time someone listened to me for 5 minutes was. Like, that was a really incredible experience. Like, we don't have a lot of places in our life where we actually get someone's full attention. Where, their device doesn't beep and they look at it, or how many times have you gone to a restaurant and you've actually looked across, you've been the table where everyone was on their phone, or you've seen the table where everyone was on their phone. Like, we have, we're coming to a crisis of our ability to give our full attention, but that doesn't mean that just because we can't do it, it's not needed. It's not imperative for human thriving. Like, we were created to give our full attention. And kids know it. From a very early age, they know it. And So I like this. So what they do at TCU is they have a couple things they do, and so they talk about gaining eye contact first. So with a child, like, hey, can you give me your eyes? They'll say, can you give me your eyes? And sometimes they might do a little chin prompt, just a light touch on their chin, And if they can't, if they can't in the moment, they'll keep asking, but then they'll use little strategies like, are your eyes orange? They'll say something, they'll make them kind of look up, They just anything to kind of start getting that kind of contact, the chin prompt, a gentle touch if that's appropriate, soft eyes. And then Karen demonstrated in this one thing. She said, if you talk to your child, if you give your voice to your child, you're going to get a certain kind of brain connection. You're going to get a string. So you're in the kitchen and you yell out, hey, do your homework. Or whatever it is. Did you clean your room? Go clean your room. You're getting a certain kind of attention, attachment, and brain connection. If you go and then you see that child and they see you and you give them their voice, then you increase that connection with them. Now it's harder for them not to, And often I've seen parents do this, many times, and I've done, especially if kids are like watching a movie or on a device or something, you have to be like, okay, pause that and look at me. You have to like somehow create that connected moment. And you do that. And so now you've got a better brain thing going, better brain connection going. But she does a third thing, and she demonstrated this. She'll say, okay, buddy, give me your eyes. And they're connected, they're listening. She'll say, now give me your hands. And she'll hold their hands. She goes, now you've got a highway to the brain. You've got a wide open lane. I was thinking about that the other day, and this is what came to me. That's what we do when we give marriage vows. That's part of the marriage ceremony. Turn to each other and take each other's hands. This is the picture of a couple giving vows to each other. They're connected visually. They're connected from an audio perspective, and they're sharing their voice with one another, and they're touching. And something actually happens neurologically in the connection at that moment. So when we think about full attention, think about those three things. Think about how are we present with our voice, visually connected with one another, and if possible, even touching. We have to, as caregivers and friends and partners in relationships, fight to give our attention. Right now, we're in a battle for that in our world, in our culture. We have to fight for it, to give it. If we don't, others will fight to get it until they just give up. They won't fight forever. Eventually, they'll just give up. So let's just think about that. What we're sacrificing. What do you want to do in your family? Like, what's a positive move? The distractions are real. They're very powerful. And so we just need to be sober about it. I don't think we need to be like, what's the word? We don't need to be overreactive. We need to be sober. We need to recognize that it's real, and how are we going to move in this place with one another. Okay, so connecting when we're doing correction. So it comes a question. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I do think there's some things that are important here that we can just go over. We can do a whole like disciplining seminar and conversation about how you do that well. But I think that there is this question of who's in charge. And what I love, Karen Purvis says, people, they look at what we do and they think we're just like really permissive, and we are not. Like, we are not permissive at all. Like, they have very strict boundaries about how children can respond to them, even the most damaged children. And they have some things that are just non-negotiables. Like, there always has to be respect. If you don't do it with respect, you try it again. And are you asking or are you telling? Because you don't tell, you ask. This is the way we operate. Are you doing it kindly? No hurts is a value. We don't hurt. If we hurt, we have to go back and do that again. We have to learn to do that without hurting. And that includes physical hurt and emotional hurt. One of the things they do to recognize hurts in their camp is they have a whole bunch of Band-Aids, and they always are marking. Hurts are important to recognize. So they're marking hurts with Band-Aids. Even sometimes they just put a Band-Aid on the child's T-shirt over their heart because they've expressed an emotional hurt and they want to recognize that. So no hurts is a very big thing. But anyway, who's in charge? There is someone in charge. And I'm not doing this I'm not going to bring out a bunch of Bible verses on this. I'm just going to tell you what Karen Purvis says, a child psychologist, told me. So I'm just going to ground it in that. I'm going to tell you that you're going to find this all, but I'm not going to go that route, because we've gone that route and sometimes it hasn't been that helpful. It's been kind of shaming. And it's so we're just going to go another route. We're just going to go there is someone in charge, and it's okay to be in charge. When we need to correct, how can we do it in a way that doesn't destroy attachment? I think that is the thing we need to really think about. So time in versus time out. Time in. So we need to think about this idea that we're with our kids when they're bad. This has been a really incredible, I think, journey for me in my own spiritual life, because I think there was a theology that I kind of grew up with that God leaves you when you're bad, and you have to get yourself together again in order to get him back. And I think that's illustrated sometimes with how we do children as well. No, you have to go take care of yourself and get it together, and then we will come together in relationship, only that isn't really how God is. And so it took me a while to learn that and to know that he was safe no matter what, and